Well, thank you very much indeed for inviting me to this second seminar. I think I'm going to provide, I hope, some continuity with the last seminar, because I'm going to try and deal with three questions that came up at that seminar. There was a suggestion, I think, from the British delegation that subjective well-being is a smokescreen hiding us from the real problems that children face. And the second question, I think, came up from Wolfgang Bradshaw, that he was worried about the comparability of measures of child subjective well-being, and in particular their validity and reliability. And then I think Claude himself expressed some anxieties about whether child subjective well-being had any policy relevance. And so I'm going to try and tackle those three questions. Firstly, the smokescreen argument. I have some sympathy with the smokescreen argument, because the British government has just started measuring the subjective well-being of children at the same time as it's cutting the welfare state for children in a most extraordinary targeted way, and the well-being of children on all sorts of dimensions is clearly deteriorating. After a period when, up to 2010, the well-being of children on quite a lot of indicators had been improving. And I'll just show you the comparisons between the UNICEF report produced in 2007. I've highlighted France with the arrow, but you'll see that the United Kingdom was right at the bottom of that league table in 2007, and by 2013 both France and the UK had moved up towards the middle of the league table. So I have some sympathy with the smokescreen argument, and I still think that the study of child poverty probably should be at the heart of social policy concerns with children. However, there are some arguments in favour of studying children's lives. Subjective well-being, of course, is only one dimension of child well-being, and in the work that the UNICEF report cards, and probably we're going to hear later from the OECD, the How's Life indicators cover not just subjective well-being, but other dimensions: material well-being, health, education, behaviour, relationships, and housing and the environment, and yes, include measures of subjective well-being. I think there's a case for studying subjective well-being because parents, and indeed grandparents, have an interest in their children being happy, and I think also the state has an interest in child happiness. The UNCRC says that we should listen to children and take their views into account, and that's what studies of subjective well-being actually attempt to do. They try to discover what children think and feel about their lives. Quite a lot of effort is going into the study of adult well-being now, and I don't see why children shouldn't be studied as well. And in fact, there's a fairly weak correlation between adult and subjective well-being. This is the Children's World's data for the second wave, only a small number of countries, and not and France is not there yet. But I mean, there is a relationship between adult subjective well-being and child subjective well-being, but it's not very strong. I think that we probably focus too much on education attainment and health in studies of children, and not sufficiently on childhood as a period of life. This is the criticism of the sociology of childhood school. We focused on ensuring that children become good adults rather than benefit from their childhoods. So I think those are reasons why we should study subjective well-being, but I would certainly not argue that it's the only subject that we should study.